Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Howdy, everybody. This is the Muslim Cowboy here, and today I have a extremely special guest, someone who has been near and dear to my heart ever since I converted to Islam, someone who I have, used to teach my kids a lot of things as they were growing up, which they're still young, and spread his videos as well. Some of you who a little bit my age or older are probably familiar with this guest. And without further ado, I want to welcome the notorious Baba Ali.
Hey, assalamu alaikum. How are you? And thank you for having me on your show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother. Alhamdulillah. It's my honor. It's a pleasure to have you. Mashallah. How's you said you're West Coast, but whereabouts? Like,
I'm in sunny Los Angeles, as you can tell. There's no light on my face. This is the actual sun of Los Angeles on my face. So yeah, we're outside hearing the birds chirp. So I just want to give you guys a feel of Los Angeles here, inshallah. So welcome.
Mashallah. The weather here? It's kind of dying down, but it's still probably, I'd say, 110, 112 in the day. What's the weather like there?
Whoa, that's too much for us. That sounds like that's Saudi, for sure Saudi weather. Here in Los Angeles, we only have 2 seasons. We only got spring and summer. Summer's for a few months. It gets pretty hot, but not generally doesn't stay 110 very long, maybe a day or two. But we'll get to the hundreds, low hundreds, upper 90s. Right now it's probably around 80-something degrees, 82 degrees.
Oh, that's
degrees
nice. That's
nice. Yeah.
And it's not humid. Is it like pretty?
No, it's nice. It's dry,
awesome.
dry.
Mashallah. But you've got to pay for it with all those taxes and everything.
Yes,
else.
trust me. They tax you. They tax you to death here. So
No,
from income tax to car tax to everything you can do, they're going to tax you. They double tax you. And then when you make money, then you go buy something, they'll tax you there again too. That's the only thing that's guaranteed here is their tax.
Yeah, alhamdulillah for Islam. That was actually something I was talking about to a non-Muslim lady yesterday. She was mentioning some things, and she likes Muslims, but she still has like a few reservations. And so we got into like jizya and all this stuff. And I was basically told her, I was like, ma'am, would you rather pay like 2.5 up to like 5% tax, or would you rather continue to pay? Because she's from France. I was like, would you rather continue to pay 40% taxes of like your yearly income, not of your just what you've accrued, which is what you would pay if you were paying the jizya, which is close to sometimes a little bit more, but pretty close to our zakat. And obviously she had to answer, well, obviously I would want that. It's a lot, a lot better. So alhamdulillah, it's alhamdulillah for Islam. So for the viewers who might not know who you are, just real quick, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you're stepping in.
Yeah, so back in 2006, I decided to start making some videos on YouTube. I searched for about 3 days looking for what other Muslim YouTubers were doing. And after 3 days of searching, I realized there are no Muslim YouTubers. So I became the first one. So I started my videos. A very short amount of time, the videos just picked up. I realized that it wasn't just Muslims watching it. There were non-Muslims watching it too. I wasn't trying to do anything special. In fact, if you look at my clothes, most of them are my sleeping clothes. I filmed the videos at night when my wife and kids were sleeping. And I just sent it for a few friends. Well, I had no idea that a few friends will send it to another few friends, and suddenly it gets like 20 million views. From there, I moved on to I was invited to go give speeches at different places. And I've spoke all around the world. I've done about 400 events around the world. And from there became humor. People thought I was funny when I was speaking, even though I was trying to be serious. So somehow I became labeled a stand-up comedian. And then from there, being at all these different events, I met amazing people. I met a great, amazing husband and wife, started a children's series called Hooray for Baba Ali. Then another series called Baba Ali Kids. So there's 2 kids series named after me on YouTube. You can watch those if you have small children. And then from there, I moved over to other things like helping people get married. 2,700 success stories with Hafardane, making games for kids and adults, family. So all kinds of stuff I've been putting together, inshallah, to try to make an impact on the ummah. So I try to do my part, inshallah. So
mashallah, you've been working hard. So you said 2006. So that's, like 16 years.
Yeah.
Allahu Akbar. Mashallah. And we're like, you're a Muslim convert, or are you born Muslim?
So I'm a convert. I became Muslim almost by the 19, 20-year-old age. I didn't know anything about Islam. So it was very hard for me to learn about Islam because we didn't have the internet back then when I first accepted Islam. So getting resources and information was very difficult. But alhamdulillah, we had a lot more knowledge back then. And today's generation is even more difficult. You think it would be easier for you, but right now you have a lot of information. And for be able
Yeah.
to go through this information to figure out what's knowledge and what's not, that itself is a task. But because the internet wasn't available and there was an abundance of information being floating around, usually the information you had access to was knowledge. So it was easier for us to gain knowledge when I became Muslim versus, I guess, someone just becoming Muslim in this day and age.
Oh, subhanallah. I can see, and I came like 8 years ago, and it is. I think sometimes being overwhelmed is a lot harder than having to go out and like search for it and whatnot. But mashallah, at least you've somehow seemed to find like kind of a niche though now, right? At least
Alhamdulillah.
for what
Yeah.
you are doing. So that's a blessing, because a lot of people they go a long time trying to figure out what they're going to do, with after Islam and learning, getting knowledge and whatnot.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, you've kind of fit somewhere, mashallah, and you're providing a service, right?
Yeah. It's every single project has one thing consistently in common. They're all about finding something that everybody else is doing and finding a better way of doing it. So if it was a kids show, how can we do something to teach kids other than a cartoon? How can we do something different? Build games that are not trivia. Think about that for a moment. When was the last time you saw a Muslim game that wasn't trivia? I searched for like 15 years. I haven't found anything. I'm the only one that made non-trivia games for Muslims. And then from there, making other type of things of say, what can we do differently? Like for the children's program, for the games, from the marriage website, how can we do something completely different than everybody else is doing out there? So, and alhamdulillah, when you do things differently, you get different results. If you do it like everybody else, you're going to get similar results.
The same results, exactly. Where do you get your inspiration from?
As far as the different projects?
When do you think of things? Because you said you got to think outside the box. You got to think differently. I mean,
I put myself in the person's shoes. Like, for example, when I started doing comedy, I thought to myself, how can I do comedy without lying? Because comedians, what they do is they're making up stuff that's not true just to make you laugh. Right. And I said, I don't want to do that. I want there to be barakah in my projects. I don't want to make fun of ethnicities. I don't make fun of different groups and because of your color of your skin, make fun of different things. Let's just make this. We can make people laugh within the halal boundaries. And when you present this to comedians, they look at you like you're strange. So I always felt like I'm the black sheep even within the Muslim comedians. I was the black sheep within like the YouTubers. I was the black sheep in all these different things I do, and I didn't care. And I surrounded myself with people who happen to be the black sheep of whatever they do. And for some reason, it clicks. So I broke all the typical rules that we're used to doing ways. And like, for example, when I run my doing business, I don't accept volunteers. Now, when's the last time you saw a Muslim organization that doesn't accept volunteers? I follow the mentality that every single person, no matter if they help a little or help a lot, or even if they don't want to get paid and they just want to be volunteers, that you should pay them. That sounds very abnormal, huh?
That's ajib, mashallah, because everyone expects to have to be a volunteer first, even before they can even get the chance at doing something more than that. But you see different results, am I right?
Yeah, one of the things I've seen, subhanAllah, is almost every single one of my projects have been above and beyond anything I expected as far as expectations working. I'll give you an example. The children's program we did for Hooray for Baba Ali. It was from Milo Productions. They said, we're going to just take this video. We're just going to send it to Egypt. A very small audience is going to see it. We filmed 13 episodes in 12 hours. And what was amazing is that when you film this, you don't think it's going anywhere. Those videos reach millions and millions of views. Millions of people watching the video that I would thought nobody's going to watch this thing. It's going to be a small area of the world that nobody's probably going to forget about it completely. And just spread around the world, which is what is going on. My YouTube series, I told you I was sleeping like a sleeping clothes. I didn't think 20 million people were going to watch this. I didn't think it was going to be broadcast on television 3 times a week. I didn't know all this stuff was going to happen because of that. And even the marriage thing, I was like, hey, I struggled getting married. I know a lot of people are struggling to get married. People are tired of doing these swiping apps. I said, what if I build something completely different than every single person out there? Okay, when you build it different, you're going to get different results. It's like I just did a matrimonial event just this past weekend. 60% of the attendees found a match. The one I did right before.
No, 1 second. 60%, not 16%, 60%.
Yeah, and that's the lowest. That's the lowest I've had in the last 3 events.
Allahu Akbar.
So the last 3 events I had 60, 62 to be exact. One was 70% in Toronto, and the highest I've had was 83% right here in California. Now, when was the last time you heard 83% of attendees finding a match at a matrimonial event?
Never.
In fact, it's almost like going to take a free throw shot, and the guy or a field goal, and he's an 83% field goal shooter or free throw shooter, or whatever. It's very unlikely you're going to miss. So when you go to these events, you're unlikely to get a match. You have to be the exception not to find a match. I'm the exact opposite, because I do the things exactly the opposite
of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, everybody else is doing speed dating. I don't do any speed dating, and I'm trying to say everything within the halal boundaries too. I care about my deen. That's another thing I try to do. I said, look, the success comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
So if you want success and you really do believe it, we don't just say it. If you really do believe it, then it should show by your actions. So if I really, really believe that success comes from Him, then I have to really put my faith in Him and do things the right way, even though it makes no financial sense sometimes. And somehow it does. Like, give you an example. My YouTube videos reached 20 million views, right? I didn't make any money off YouTube. Till today, I haven't got one check from YouTube. I didn't care about that. My intention was trying to do something different. And guess what happened? Because of those videos on YouTube, I get invited to all these different places. And all these places pay me to come and speak. I'm like, what? Yes, we just want you to talk. And not just places. Oh, you got XYZ, like Harvard, MIT. These are huge universities here we have in the United States and nationally recognized. And I'm speaking literally in the same t-shirt I'm wearing right now, like a half our Dean t-shirt. I stood on stage. And when I was up, I'll tell you what happened. Was that Harvard? Yeah, I think I was at Harvard. I said, this was when Trump was president. I said, what did I say? I said, I'm standing in a room and it feels a bit intimidating. Literally, every single person in this room is probably smarter than me. They didn't laugh. You're laughing, but they didn't laugh. They're kind of, I guess, agreeing. And then I'm like, now I know what Donald Trump feels like when everyone in the room's smarter than him. And they all started laughing. So that was my icebreaker to break the ice over there.
That was good. That's really good. SubhanAllah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's been a great adventure. And SubhanAllah, things I never planned for, it happened. So Allah subhanahu does best of planners.
Yeah. And I think a key too is, first of all, like you said, following these halal boundaries. And then two, making sure that our intention is pure. And try, I guess, is that something that you do constantly to always like check, why am I doing this? Do you have to like keep renewing that intention? Because being someone who gets 20 million views can, it can make you feel a certain feeling, right?
Yeah,
it feels nice.
Sure.
And so double checking, like, how often do you do that? Like what is it like for you to, check, am I doing this?
Every time I come home, my wife asks me to take out the garbage, takes me to help me change the baby's diapers. Whatever you are in the outside world, I am put down to earth, and now she makes me a nice humble sandwich, and that's what I eat. So what I'm saying is, you surround yourself with people who keep you grounded, and you'll stay grounded. But if you surround yourself with people who are trying to get that attention and try to get that type of thing, they're going to push you towards the wrong direction. That's my biggest thing, has been the people I surround myself with. And if you surround yourself around poor characters, you're going to become part of them, and you're going to have their mentality. I have zero interest in becoming famous or any of those type of things. Zero. It never changed me. My friends from the moment before Baba Ali and after Baba Ali has been exactly the same person.
That's awesome. That's a good lesson. And I guess I want to take this and move this into our basically the next topic, which is, the youth, because unfortunately, I think, the youth can get distracted really easily or get taken off of the way, and they can, follow after these things thinking that becoming famous is what it's all about, or maybe pleasing their friends is what it's all about, or they get lost other than understanding that it's really Allah's pleasure, and doing the right thing and following these halal boundaries is the key. So what do you think is like the biggest problem facing the youth today?
I think there's multiple things. I think the number one issue happens to be their friends. They don't realize that, yes, you don't have a choice of your parents. You don't have a choice of the different situations that you're put into. You don't have a choice of the test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you in. But you do have a choice of the friends you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with 9 idiots, you're the 10th, and you don't realize it. You think that you're stronger than you actually are. You're not. You have to put yourself around people that you want to be like. And if they're not changing, by the way, and you have these bad friends, and you're like, oh, they're just been the same people, what you don't realize is even more dangerous. You're the one changing. Because either you're changing or they're changing. That's the human nature of the human being. You don't both stay exactly where you are. The problem is that the change that you do is so minor that you don't see it. And that's where it becomes super dangerous.
It's almost like the saying of, the best way to, kill a frog is not to turn up the heat on the stove and then put it in, but you put the frog in the cold water and then you
Slowly.
slowly dial the heat up until
Yeah.
it's too late and it's already done.
Yeah.
And I
And
think there's a hadith from the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he said, "Al marru ala dini khalili," right? Which is a person is upon the deen, the way, the religion of their closest
friends.
friend, of their friends. So
Yeah.
that's a subhanallah, really good. So really, it boils down to like who the youth are surrounding themselves with.
Yeah. And if
But
you, but I'll tell you something that when parents come up to me and they ask me, what can I do? My kid's going the wrong direction. I said, the number one thing you can do, you can sit there and give them lectures and take them to Islamic classes and stuff like that. But the number one thing you can do is try to get them to change their friends. Go see who their friends are. So even if it's better to be alone at times than being around bad friends. And that's the number one thing before they can do anything else. You can give them lectures, you can give them all these talks, but then you go right back to their friends who are going to reset them to whatever direction they were going in. But having the right friends will change you as well. Now, here comes the question. Why would the good people want to hang out with you? If you're a bad person, good people don't want to hang out with you. They want to go a different direction. I wouldn't want to hang out with you if you're a bad person. We won't have much in common. So the very fact that people don't, you're saying it's so hard to find good friends is because you're not a good person. That's the bitter truth people don't want to hear. You need to change yourself so good people want to be around you. It's the same thing when people want to get married. I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, give me a good person, good person, good person, and all I get is bad people. Well, maybe you don't deserve it. Maybe because you're not at that level yet. Someone's making dua too, by the way, for a good person. Someone's making dua for, oh Allah, give me a good wife or a good husband. That's the same person that you're supposed to be meant for. But until you change to become that good person that they're making dua for, then don't expect anything to happen to you. Because Allah is just. It's not going to just bring you someone amazing. You have to be the same amazing person that that person is making dua for too. If that makes sense.
SubhanAllah, that's a really good reminder.
It's the same with friends.
Yeah, I mean, even when it comes to like our communities, like right, Allah doesn't change the condition of a people until they change what's in themselves.
Exactly.
So, I mean, so what happens though when you have like youth, and since you deal with youth, what happens if somebody comes to you and they say that like, look, I don't think I can ever be good enough. I've made all these mistakes. Maybe no one will ever want to be around me. Maybe Allah is not going to forgive me. Obviously, it's a different topic, but obviously they get into this depression where they've screwed up so much, at least in their mind, that they think that how am I going to move forward from here? Like, how would you like give somebody advice on that?
If they think I don't think this, and they're right, they don't think that. Who cares what you think? You're not your judge. You're not the one who's going to decide if you go to Jannah or Jahannam. So who cares what you think? You're not. It's not. Oh, I don't think Allah will forgive me. Who cares what you think? You're thinking what Allah will forgive and not forgive it has absolutely no weight or value. On the day of judgment, Allah is the one who decides. You can limit Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness as a human beings, and that's why you assume He can't forgive. You think the most forgiving person in the world still won't be able to forgive me. Well, that might be true, because you're thinking about a human being. You're comparing the creator of the world, of all the universe, everything within it, to a human being's forgiveness level. I mean, think about that for a moment. Then you don't really understand the concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You do not understand who you're dealing with. When He says His forgiveness is among the most forgiving, it's nothing that you can imagine. So by saying, oh, He can't forgive because I've done this and that, what do you think that you have done that thousands and millions and billions of people that before you have never done? And yet Allah can forgive them. There's literally nothing you can do. So what you have to do is ask for forgiveness, because I can tell you one thing. If you walk into a cemetery and you walk around, if you walk long enough, you're going to find someone who's the exact same age as you. And they wish they can take one moment back to ask for forgiveness, but they can't. Their time is done. The pen has been lifted for them, and they're now going to be waiting for judgment. The very fact that you're alive and watching this video is another sign that you have another chance to come back towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only one that will hold you back is Shaitan. Shaitan's vision for you is one thing. All he has is one goal. It's not about, oh, you this and that, or no. Only one goal: to make you give up. To give you the idea that there's no hope. To make you the idea that the one forgiving you and the one you're dealing with is like a human being. That's what you're dealing with. But we know through our deen, this is not a human being. This is not Jesus or like a Buddha or any type of nonsense. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're talking about his attributes. Nothing of human being will come. What's up if everyone of all the human beings, we took all their forgiveness and put it in a pot, we still couldn't compare to Allah's level of forgiveness. Nothing. So what are you talking about when you say, so when the guy and girl says, oh, I can't forgive me? Of course not. That's what you think. Of course, that's what you think. That's what you think. Who cares what you think? It has absolutely no value. It has no value. You're not the one who's going to be the decider. You're not going to be the king on the day of judgment. You're not going to be the judge of all judges. So for me, I have to realize that whatever bad I do, don't let shaitan get to me. Don't make him think that I'm unforgivable. I'll leave that between me and my creator. When you think this way, your mindset's different. But as soon as you give up, everything else falls like dominoes. And that's the last thing you want.
Awesome. And so so someone's got to this point where they believe that Allah can forgive them, but they maybe have, some nervousness. People knew about things that they did, and they know that this group of people or other Muslims, say they were, not close to these righteous Muslims, right? And they're 16, 17 years old, and they know what this person did, and they're kind of hesitant. Like, how do they approach that? Like, how do they, at least try to get back and build that trust for people to think that this guy isn't just going to be playing around, not taking it seriously, being a bad influence on them.
And that, by the way, that's not just friends, it's just parents too. Like if you're starting to become more religious and your parents are more cultural, or your parents are not religious, or they're from a complete different religion, they're going to see you through a microscope. And some of the people see themselves through you. So if they think to themselves, oh, if I went through this phase, I would have probably not been sincere, or I would just bounce right back. So that's their own weaknesses, and you have absolutely no control over. What you have to do is to be the best version of yourself. So what I did, one of the first things I make dua for when I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after my salah is finished, whenever I make dua, one of the first things I ask for is, oh Allah, bring me towards companions and projects that bring me closer to you, and take me away from companions and projects that take me away from you. All of these people that are being written into your script of which we call your life, this movie, these are characters Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purposely placed in your life. Your father, your mother, your siblings, these different people in your life have been handpicked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. You have to deal with it. And no matter how difficult these people are, how challenging they are, there is no test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put you in that you cannot pass. Absolutely no test. It will feel like it. Shaitan will come to you and say, this will never end. This was the worst. You can never get through this. He's the one trying to make you lose hope. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the ayah tells us that he will not ever test you with something that you can't pass. He will not put on a burden upon you that you cannot bear. But it'll feel like that. You just have to push through and not give up. So these people that are in your life, subhanAllah, when you make certain du'as to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask him to take these people away and bring good people towards you, certain people, will you see somehow, some way, they just kind of like wither up. And the people you had no access to, they enter your life. And things change. And then you change. That's how you become a better person. It's no coincidence that these people come in and out. It's almost, I want you guys to imagine a movie, and you're watching your favorite series on Netflix or whatever show, and these people, like a main character, you're the main character in your life, and in season 1, these people were the main characters, and they were part of your sidekick in your group, and then these people either move away, they die off, or something happens, and new people get written out in part 2 or part 3, in season 3 or season 4, and the whole story changes while you still stay the main character. This script is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These characters are by him. So whatever is hitting you was never going to miss you. And whatever was going to miss you was never going to hit you. It's a test that you're meant to go through so you can, inshallah, earn your way into Jannah. Of course, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy.
Of course. No, subhanAllah. I think that's really good advice. But going further, when it comes to the influences that are coming upon our kids, like, from day-to-day life. Okay. So maybe they're going to school and maybe our kids are pretty, they're pretty practicing. They've got a decent group of friends, but maybe in the school, they're exposed to some things because maybe not all Muslim kids go to private school. Sometimes in private school, they're exposed to some of the same stuff they're exposed to in public school. Like, how do we deal with the exposure that the kids have? Obviously, when you're talking about Netflix or other things, we want to be cognizant and, understanding what our kids are watching, and consuming. But like when it comes to things that we can't control, or maybe things that they'll, be exposed to in school, How do we prepare them for that? How do we prepare them for, you know, the ABC soup that's going on today, or I mean, anything else that is being bombarded and, you know, just thrown at our children in the West?
So let's say I drop off, since you bring a school example, I'll go back to a school example. So let's say I drop off my kids at school, and that's it. I just take them, open the door, say, go, your class is that way. And they leave. They go sit down and they look around, and every single kid has a backpack, and my kid has no backpack. And just they're carrying a few things in their hand. They also have no pencil. They also have nothing. They just have some basic, I just give them a sandwich and a drink. They don't have the tools that they need to succeed. Yet we're all putting the same kids in this classroom. Some kid comes in, say next to them, has all the different tools for today's class. They're doing a math class and they have a calculator, and my kid doesn't have a calculator. Has a number 2 pencil because they're going to use a Scantron. They don't have a number 2 pencil. And that kid is more likely to be successful than my child. So the tools that you give your child allows them to go through this world and navigate through this world to be successful. But if you don't give them the tools, how do you expect just to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just things to just fall into place? It doesn't work that way. You can't just go and apply for a job and not have the skill set. You have to have the tools in addition to making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be successful. So with our kids, if you have never showed them the tools of being a strong Muslim and all the things that they need to be successful, what do you think is going to happen when you put them into the world out there? They're going to fail. They're unlikely to be successful. I'm talking about the dunya side of it. I'm talking about just like the akhirah side of it. If your kid is, I'm like my children, I have 2 daughters. I have never told my daughters to wear hijab. They both wear hijab on their own. I never like have to tell them, oh, give them a speech about praying salah. You have to pray. I don't even do that. They pray on their own. One of my daughters was at one of her friend's house, and the mother called my wife and said, you know, your daughter, I think she was 10, 9 or 10 or something like that, 11, maybe 9. And she said, it's amazing. It was time she was playing with the kids, and she looked at her watch and said, oh, or she looked at the clock and said, oh, where is the direction for salah here? And she's not telling you when to go pray. She's asking, where's the direction so I need to take a break. I'm going to put my toys down to go pray Asr and then come right back. And the mother's completely shocked. So we haven't even prayed Asr yet. This kid's, the 9, 10-year-olds praying Asr. What's going on? And the mother called my wife and said, what do you guys do? How do you guys tell your kids? So we don't tell them anything. We give them the tools that they need so they can move ahead. Like, for example, how often do parents sit down and talk about like aqidah with their kids? They tell them rules. This is haram, this is halal, this is haram, this is halal. But how often have you even sat with your kids to talk about if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists or not? How do we know Islam is the truth versus other religions? Like the same tools that non-Muslims have, and they acquired when they convert to Islam, which makes a lot of converts so strong that many born Muslims are never given, because they just assume, oh, because you're born Muslim, you're probably obviously convinced that Islam is the truth. How many born Muslims do we have that are just following the footsteps of their fathers or their mothers, following the tradition and treating Islam literally like a culture? So when they are tested with something major, the whole thing falls apart. But a convert, aside from being tested by the Muslim community, that's their biggest test, by the way, right? They're the test. Because you're dealing with a bunch of people who are cultural and not religious. They come across as religious, but they're culturally religious. Versus someone who is Islamically cultured. I try to teach my kids to be Islamically cultured, right? So your culture that you have is going to be aligned with Islam. My kids don't know anything about their mother being Kenyan or father being Persian, nothing like that. They don't know Persian culture, Kenyan culture is. All the culture they know about is Islamic culture. Now, people get sensitive about that stuff because, oh, that's my culture, it's my pride. The same way you have pride about your culture, the same pride I have for Islam. Because I didn't grow up with Islam. I didn't grow with it. So I value it so much because I didn't have it. I remember how hard it was to be a teenager not having these tools. And now that I have it, I'm not going to give my kids garbage culture, with all due respect. Culture, let's talk about exactly what it is. It's something that human beings make. And it's backwards. And every single time you see something in the news that says, oh, Muslims are doing this and Muslims are doing that, it is 100% of the time is dealing with culture. Never deals with Islam. Because the Muslims, whenever they're doing something backwards or something that doesn't, most of the time it conflicts with Islam, by the way, and they get it on the news for that, terrorism, whatever it is, that has nothing to do with Islam. It's just some cultural nonsense. some nonsense about this and some, oh, women can't choose who their husbands are. Nothing in Islam, it conflicts with Islam, the stuff we do. Oh, women can't do this and men can't do that. Where in the text does it say any of this? Oh, exactly. It's our culture. That's your culture. And that's what you want to pull me towards? No, thank you. But when you talk to them, oh, we're talking about food and language. No one's going to argue ever with food and language. No one's going to say anything bad about that. But once you don't stop there. That's the problem. You go above and beyond that. And then you raise your kids with this nonsense culture, and now they're culturally religious. So they go and they pray Tarawih. They don't pray Isha. They don't pray Fajr. They just pray Tarawih. Feels very religious. And we fasted the month of Ramadan. And while I'm fasting, I'm doing this haram stuff, but I'm fasting. I'm just going through the motions. I'm cursing, I'm doing this, I'm lying, I'm cheating, whatever, I'm fasting. What are you fasting? Like, do you understand what fasting is? Do you understand what any of this stuff is? You're just going through the motions. Because the same child, if he's born to a different religion, will they come and choose Islam? If so, why? And if you don't have an answer to that, then you better start figuring that part out. Because all this religious stuff is easy. You know what it becomes difficult? When you're tested. And Allah, when He tests you, it will show very, very clearly if you're Islamically cultured or if you're culturally Muslim. Very big difference. And when we get tested, all of us will be tested. I get tested. That is when we need to step with, we need to test, as you said earlier, fame, money, tested with death, poverty. All of us will get tested in different ways. Once you get tested with those things, then you'll see where your level of iman is. Not because I'm praying 20 rakats or 8 rakats and I'm doing fasting and I feel very religious, or I'm wearing my kufi and my thobe and this and that, I'm wearing my hijab, I feel very religious and this should be very spiritual. No, Islam is far more above beyond that. If it was just about that, people like me would have never converted to Islam. It is a complete, comprehensive, full Islamic way of life. Everything from A to Z. That's why we were intellectually convinced to give up all the haram stuff that we were doing, to give up our girlfriends, to give up the haram job, to give up all these things for this religion. Do you think we're just going to jump into it because someone feels spiritual? No way. Wake up 5 in the morning to pray salah? You have to be convinced. And your kids have to be convinced if you want to make sure they go down the right way. And before they can get convinced, you have to be convinced, inshallah. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, that more than answers my question, and that's a great segue into the next topic. But before we do, I just want to make dua that Allah can that makes us, blesses us, gives us knowledge, makes us a great example as parents, and then may He bless our children and allow them to be protected and to be able to face the issues that that are definitely going to come their way when they are tested. Allahumma ameen. Ameen. So next, I want to go into then once our children get older. Maybe some of us who are watching right now, a lot of people are still unmarried. I want to get into marriage. So this is something that you mentioned earlier. This is a lot of the work that you do besides working with the youth is working with marriage, and you have your own service, mashallah, khidmah towards the believers, towards helping people in a different way to find half their deen, to complete something that is so huge, to where the Prophet ﷺ said, he is not from me who does not get married, meaning that, it's such a good thing to do, you really should do it. So tell me a little bit about what you've done, and then, we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, so the project that I worked on is a project called Half Deen. I could have named it Muslim Marriage App, Muslim this, and Muslim Marriage this, and Marriage Catch, MuslimDating.com. Much more catchier names that'll be much more user-friendly in the search engines. But to have it called Half Deen, for example, you would have to kind of know about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, talking about marriage is half of our deen. So I want to attract a different audience. I didn't want the dating audience. I don't want 4 million Muslims on my platform. I need to filter down to the Muslims who are more marriage-minded. And unfortunately, there's a fraction of Muslims who are good Muslims, who are marriage-minded. So I'm only going to have a fraction of them, which is fine. But I need to figure out how to gather those people. So many, many years ago, I was struggling to find my other half. And it was very difficult for me as a convert, not being able to go through my local community, not being able to go through my parents and my friends all being single. I exhausted every way. I was like, I don't know what to do to get married. So I said, let me try something different. Let me go online. Because I don't know where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put my other half. I just know He made us in pairs. But my pair doesn't mean they live in Los Angeles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can place my pair in some other part of the world because we're speaking a different language from a different ethnicity. Believe that for a moment. They can be somewhere different completely. So I said, let me cast this humongous net around the world and see where my other half is. So I joined every matrimonial program. I went to every halal path possible. And through all that, I interacted with 17 different sisters that showed interest. Of those 17 sisters, I told myself, there's no way I'm attractive that much because I have a missing tooth. So there must be something off of this whole thing.
I got one too, guys. You're not alone.
So I'm like, okay, there must be something off. There's no way. They're telling me what I want to hear. And today, a lot of sisters are going through the same thing. They're talking with a lot of brothers contacting for interest. They don't know who's telling them the truth and who's telling them what they want to hear. So what I did is I came up with a system where I had questions that didn't have right or wrong answers. I sent that to all 17 sisters, and one of them answered it correctly. That's the one I married 21 years ago. So my friends asked Ali, can I see those questions?
I was about to ask. I wanted to see what the question was.
Yeah, so questions don't have right or wrong answers. I'll give.
Hold on a second. Just lost your mic for a second. Okay, bismillah. 1 second. Your audio's not working anymore. It just all of a sudden stopped. 1 second. I can't hear anything right now, Baba Ali. 1 second.
Second.
There we go. It just started. There it goes.
There you go. No problem. So the question I was asking, do you think the world needs more justice or does it need more mercy?
Okay. Does it need...
With all the stuff that's happening in the world today, do we need more justice or more mercy to kind of solve our problems? The very fact that he's sitting there thinking about it tells me it's a good question. And there's no, how do you know it's a good question? There's no obvious answer. And because if there was an obvious answer, he would have an immediate response. If I would have asked him, are you a good Muslim? Are you more fair? Are you more forgiving? He would just answer that way, right? But what I really did ask him is, are you more fair or are you more forgiving? Because if he chooses the world needs more justice, that means he's more fair. And if he says the world needs more mercy, that means he's likely to be more forgiving. And each of you who's looking to get married, you each have your preference of what you're looking for. A husband or wife who's more fair, or a husband and wife who's more forgiving. And if two of you are best friends, even a brother and sister, and you're both looking to get married, or two sisters looking to both get married, one of you may want a husband who's more just, while somebody else wants a husband who's more forgiving. There's no right. There's no wrong. In fact, of the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yeah, it's about you. It's the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One is the most just, and one is the most forgiving. Right? So my point is this, you have to come up with these creative questions to filter people out. But questions was the first layer. Then I came up with the second layer, personality. How to tell like what personality that you are, because there's a lot of personality tests out there, but all they tell you is about you. They don't tell you anything else. So what my personality test does is figure out what you are, then find out what you're attracted to, and then, and most importantly, find out what you can tolerate. If you want to get married, just find someone you're attracted to. If you want to stay married, find someone that can tolerate your nonsense, and you can tolerate their nonsense. With all the weakness and flaws that come with each of us, you'll be able to tolerate each other. And that's something people don't look into. That's why most people, when they get married, they say, oh, amazing, this amazing, most amazing husband in the world, most amazing wife in the world. And then a year later, this is the worst husband in the world, the worst wife in the world. What happened? Weren't you attracted to them? I was. And then I found out who they really were, and I couldn't tolerate them, and they couldn't tolerate me. Now, if this person is the most worst human being in the world, then explain to me why in a few years this person gets married to somebody else and they live happily ever after. I thought they were the worst person in the world. Nobody can ever handle them. No, no, no. You couldn't. You couldn't tolerate that person. Somebody else can. And they couldn't tolerate you, but somebody else can. You just weren't meant for each other. But when you're talking to each other for Q&A, all you do is find out what you're attracted to. You're not looking into the tolerance side of it. So that's the second thing we do. The third thing is finding out what people's priorities are. And again, not to let people tell you what you want to hear. I came up with a list of 10 things which all sound good. What do you want? Good manners, kindness, someone who's clean, someone who's this, someone who's that, similar religious views, same culture, intelligence, similar education. What is the most important? What is the least important? And you drag desire for children. As you drag these up and down, you make your priority list. Everybody has the exact same 10 words. And then when you look at someone's profile, it will show you where your words similar and where you're different. But it goes further. Every single time you guys speak to somebody, what do? You ask a series of marriage questions. Then you find certain things you have in common, things you don't have in common. But every single time you start speaking to somebody, you start brand new over. And what happens? You say, I'm exhausted. I don't want to look anymore. I'm tired. Well, I don't have to do that. Why? Because what I did is I came up with 158 marriage questions. Everybody answers them. I send it to everybody to answer. And then when you go to their profile, they just have to answer it once. And now every single time you look at someone's profile, it'll show you each and every answer where you think alike and where you think differently. And it breaks it down by category. So it looks at all the marriage questions and it says, oh, on the finance questions, you're 84% match. Religious views, 22% match. On lifestyle, you're 50% match. 50% match, yeah. So you click on the lifestyle button. What does that mean? You see on a granular level, you see each and every person, so each and every question where you are aligned and where you answer differently. And then you can figure out where you guys answer differently. So when you eventually your two families do start communicating, you know exactly what to talk about. Rather than, Assalamu alaikum, where are you from? Tell me more about yourself. What's the role of the husband? What's the role of the wife? Same old broken record you've heard 1,000 times and it doesn't go anywhere. 45% divorce rate currently with Muslims.
That's crazy. Want to do, like that's almost like the non-Muslim rate.
It's almost there because we're doing things like non-Muslims. And if you want, by the way, to get different results, you have to do things differently. Whatever you're doing right now, and if you're very similar to what your friends are doing, you're going to have very similar results as your friends. That's why I built a completely alternative platform to do it to get different results. My first success story till today has been married. Can you believe it? With 3 kids.
Amazing. That's awesome.
So it works. It just depends what you guys are trying to do. So now I'm venturing off to other things. I say, okay, people are asking me, hey, can we meet in person? I say, yeah, but it has to be within the halal boundaries. Like, again, men and women cannot be alone. There's no touching, this and that. So can you prepare and organize events that allow people to meet each other in a natural way? But instead of 2 people, how about 40 people and 40 men and 40 women and in an organized, again, within the halal boundaries so you guys can learn about each other. So I designed that. My name, Baba Ali, actually comes not because of, most people know me from YouTube or from my kids shows, but my name comes because I was a game inventor way back in the days, back in 2004. So 2 years before I started anything on YouTube, I invented games.
What was it? Tell me about them.
So one was a negotiating game called Mecca to Medina. And my games were, by the way, my games were Muslim games sold to non-Muslims and Muslims.
Oh, wow.
Now, when was the last time
you still buy them? Can I still get a copy of one of these?
That's the thing. I sold out of all the games. Thousands of games were made. They all sold out. Alhamdulillah. I made a first Muslim party game. That was a word game, similar to like Taboo type of genre, but it's not like Taboo, but it's different. I made that. Alhamdulillah, non-Muslims again. I have that game. So what do you think non-Muslims buy our game called Kalimat? But all kinds of stuff I want to do. And eventually, I started making just games for myself. So my friends come over, we play games. I didn't really care about selling them. I didn't really think about too much about selling those first 2 games, but someone said, hey, you should sell this and see what happens. And it's okay, I'd like the challenge. I want to see if non-Muslims would buy my game or not. People who don't even like Islam, 0, but I like your game. I want that. I want to see the people who are like totally like 0, but I really like your game. I don't know, I hate Islam, but I love your game and I just don't know what to do. And it's like, and there's Dawah within the game, by the way. So it's like,
oh, Allah Akbar.
So I really like your game, but you're torn. But what happens is it teaches you things in a unique way. So yeah, now I design games, and all the games I've been designing for the last few years are for one purpose, for one customer. And that customer are the people who come to my live events. So I make games for Muslims who are single, looking to learn about each other within the halal boundaries, and learning about each other in a natural way. For example, the latest game I invented, one of the latest games I invented, was a game called The Perfect Match, where I made 20 puzzles, each with 4 pieces. And each table will get one piece of every of those puzzles. So what happens is there's 8 tables of brothers and sisters looking to get married. At each table, they would have to discuss among each other what pieces they have and to come up with a plan to figure out what is our goal and objective. And this is where you're going to see how men and women interact. You're going to see if they are team players, if they're highly competitive, if they're too comfortable with the opposite gender, things that you'll never see in a Q&A when just doing an interview with one another. And what happens is now you're going to be competitive against other tables because now you have to go get pieces from them that you need. And you have to give what they need, which is very similar to the marriage courtship process. Whereas a husband and wife, you are bringing things to the table and they are bringing things to the table. And now you have a set of negotiation of what you're going to give and what you're going to take to make this marriage work. And sometimes someone comes to a table and says, I need this and this and this. And you're like, so? And you're like, well, I need that. Can I get it? He says, no, you can't. I need something from you. And they said, what do you have? Well, so let me see what you have. And say, you don't have anything that I need, which happens, by the way, in marriage quite a bit. People looking to get married. So you need to go get that and then come back to me, which is my brothers are looking to get married. Sister says, I'll marry you, but you need to have these certain things, have emotional intelligence, have a stable job, blah, blah, blah. So now the man has to go develop those things and then come back to marry her. So this guy has to go get the other cards from another table, negotiate with them to get the pieces they need to get to their goals. And that's how we do things a bit differently. And it works very, very well. I have to make multiple announcements for people to stop that activity. And by the way, one of my inspirations is a story of Omar. I'm sorry, not the story of Omar, a saying of Omar that said you need to do 3 things with somebody. You can do to know who they are, like either live with them or maybe you have to do all 3. I don't know, but either have to live with them, do business with them, or travel with them. Yeah. Since we can't live with each other because we're doing halal, and can't travel with each other again, trying to do things halal, it's too expensive. We are doing business, and this negotiating game, you will see a lot about somebody. Just as you mentioned, you played football. When you play football with some people, you will see a different side of their personality that you would never see in other settings. And I want to show you who they really are, not just a person who they're pretending to be when they're doing a Q&A with them during the courtship process. And alhamdulillah, our numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, and isn't that one of the biggest problems you see in other courtship processes, is that people put on this different persona for marriage, and then once the marriage starts, then one or the other or both start seeing that this person isn't necessarily the one who they were talking to a few months before. Mm-hmm. Once they kind of let things go and falling back into their normal selves. Is that like a big problem, like outside of?
And that's why I need to show them who they are through these activities. For some reason, even the brothers who put a front up in the masjid and pretend to be this very pious person, whatever, as soon as you go to a basketball court or a football field or whatever, and you see the real, they can't hold the front up anymore. You will see a side of them that they cannot pretend to they can't put that guard up anymore. It's too hard. Men can only focus on one thing at a time. They can't think of, okay, my body language while I'm playing the sport, and also they can't. So the real part of them comes out. If they're a show off, they'll come out. If they have quick temper, come out. If they get easily frustrated, it comes out. If they're arrogant, it comes out. How you win, how you lose, how you act, how you treat others. When someone makes a mistake on your team, how do you treat them? When you lose, very close, how do you act? A lot of you comes out of you. And that's the real personality. And that's what I'm trying to show for people. I want to put you in a stressful environment, and I want to bring up sensitive topics that will make you think. For example, I have an activity called the Great Compromise. I show you 28 very, very negative words. Characteristics: arrogance, selfish, heartless, all kinds of really, really negative words about annoying, overly emotional, whatever, insecure, whatever. Pushover. And I'll give you all these really negative words, and I ask you, choose 7 of these really negative words that you can't tolerate. If your husband or wife has it, you'll get a divorce. And then you choose. Those are easy. Okay, I've had all these are terrible, but these are the 7 worst. Okay, of the remaining words, 21 of them, choose 7 that if your husband and wife happen to have it, you'll be able to tolerate. You won't get a divorce. And like, whoa, I don't like this part. Yeah, I know you don't like it. Are you okay with a husband who's always late? What about someone who's a little bit stubborn, or a wife who has getting a bit emotional? Because if you're sitting there thinking that marriage life is going to be perfect, you're never going to get married. You have to be able to tolerate some things, and you've never asked yourself what you can tolerate. In fact, none of your friends or your parents have ever asked you what can you tolerate, and that's why this question is so difficult. So what I do is I ask these questions at the event, and then you answer it, and then you reveal your answer to everyone at your table, and now you see how the other people think, if they think similar to you, how they think different, and this lets you learn a different layer about somebody than just saying "Assalamu alaikum," tell me what you do, oh mashallah, and that kind of stuff. Do you pray? Do you fast? Those stuff is easy. Those stuff you can ask as anytime. Just figure out these other layers about the person, and after they pass that filter, remember the filter we were talking about? Yeah. Then spend your time asking, do you pray? Do you fast? Do you do this? Do you do that? Why give all your precious time to a bunch of people that may not be compatible with you? I have 11 different activities. Those are just 2 of them.
Those are just 2. Oh my gosh. So how long does a typical session usually last? Like a couple hours?
I mean, 4 to 5 hours.
A pretty. 4 to 5 hours. You got to set a day aside, or at least like a half of your day.
Yeah, you have to put at least 4 hours aside, but usually people don't leave until 6 hours. Not because the program's over, they just don't want to leave. And that's one of the ways we value. You see, when we don't know who's successful, who's not until the next day. But during the event, we see certain things that we can tell if the event's going really well. For example, when people are walking, when we're walking out and we packed our bags, we packed our tablecloth, we put everything in the bag and we're leaving the event, if we look around and 50% of the audience is still there, that tells us the event was well. They don't want to leave. I have to see, can I make people feel comfortable enough to show who they really are? I want you to imagine, because with these speed dating nonsense, which I'm really against, all this garbage that we took from non-Muslims, by the way. Non-Muslims don't use it for marriage. Ask a non-Muslim, would you want to meet someone for 3 minutes and decide who you want to marry? They'll say no. Well, we copied your process. That's not our process for marriage. That's our process for dating. And a date is a 3-hour relationship. They go on a movie and dinner and whatever stuff non-Muslims do. We Muslims shouldn't be doing that nonsense. Unfortunately, some Muslims do. But my whole point is that we're looking to get married. We can't take a tool designed for something else and apply it for something else. I can't take lotion for my skin and put it as toothpaste. Yeah. But they're both creamy and they're both white. It doesn't matter. They're not the same thing. And people are confused. Non-Muslims don't even use it. Non-Muslims, do you use lotion for your toothpaste? No. Why are you Muslims doing it? They're confused. They think we're crazy. And Muslims, we follow it like a sunnah. Speed dating is garbage.
Why does this happen? Why? How do we fall into this?
Because we're a copy and paste ummah. We literally don't know how to do any innovation. The only innovation we know how to do is bid'ah when it comes to religion.
Real bid'ah.
Real bid'ah.
Yeah.
When it comes to innovation for outside of religion, which is allowed, you don't know how to do it. Suddenly you lose your mind. But when it comes to religion, you have to make up all this nonsense, add all this extra spice to Islam and call it Islam, which is haram, by the way.
Right.
So bid'ah, you have no problem with innovation, but outside of things which is actually allowed, like process, technology, where do you go there? Instead, now you rely on being copy and paste ummah. You can only copy and paste what everybody else is doing. You can. When was the last time Muslims invented something, and then from the Muslim ummah, the non-Muslims start copying? We have to go back 1,000 years to talk about algebra, the number 0, and go back to Islamic science. Why isn't the science in 2022? I'm trying to make something instead of copying what non-Muslims are doing. I'm trying to show you, like, we're going to build something that non-Muslims are going to copy. Because as I told you earlier, non-Muslims don't have stats like we do. They're not going to. They don't have 83% of their single events finding a match. We're revolutionizing things. I'm not saying I need to copy. Look at the swiping apps. The swiping apps, they had to either change their names or they got sued. The 2 biggest swiping apps had either changed their names or they got sued. Why? Because we literally copied and pasted exactly what non-Muslims did with Tinder. And what did we copy? We copied a Muslim, again, taking a process that was designed for something else. Tinder is designed for hooking up, temporary relationships. It's not even for marriage. Non-Muslims don't use it for marriage. They use eHarmony, Match.com. They use that. In fact, Match.com owns Hinge, Tinder, and all these like 20, 30 major sites. They use specifically this one for hooking up. And we copy that for marriage-minded Muslims. Like, we don't have copy and paste. We might as well. We must be professional copy and paste ummah. We're copy and pasting the wrong way. Again, applying the lotion for our toothpaste. Copy somebody else's toothpaste. Stop copying their lotion. It's like, what are you guys thinking? Go copy eHarmony. But you know why we don't do it? And this is the bitter truth that you don't want to hear. Far more profitable. Tinder makes more than eHarmony does. That model, and it's a lot more less work for you to do it. It's all about money. So when I did things and I presented my model, I've been told your model is better. It does work. It is far more successful. Ours do fail, but we will continue doing what we're doing. I've been told that directly.
Allah, because the money is just, it's so much. It's so big.
Let me tell you the system. I want you guys to imagine this for a second, and you guys can put yourself in my shoes. All right? I want you to think of a matrimonial event. We're going to do a singles event. All right, inshallah, we need a singles event, this and that. This is what they do, by the way. What they do is they put a range between 22 to 40. Anybody who wants to come to a matrimonial or singles event, you have to be between the ages of 22 and 40. You're like, okay, sounds good. By the way, if you're 41, good luck. If you're 21, good luck. 20, we have nothing for you. But nevertheless, 22 to 40. So open, the doors are open. Who's the first person to rush in? A bunch of sisters. So all they're going to sign up, and a bunch of brothers who do end up signing up are those 21, 22, 23-year-old brothers. The sisters who do end up signing up are 35, 36, 38, 40-year-old sisters. Now you have an event where there's 80% sisters, 20% brothers. They all paid you about $100 each person, so you made money. There's a guy in the back counting his money, and you have a group of people, a lot of people, sold out event, but there's 80 sisters and 20 brothers, and among the 20 brothers, a bunch of guys are very, very young, or there's old to be as your grandpa. So now that you have them together, you have a 40-year-old sister talking to a 22-year-old brother, and that's super awkward. And the remaining sisters are saying they're doing this. Nothing to do because there's no one to speak to. No success, complete awkwardness, complete failure. And the guy made a lot of money. Very easy, no work. Now, let me tell you what we do that's different. First of all, we don't let you in just because you want to come, just because you have money. You have to be handpicked. So hundreds of people apply for our event. We select between 70 to 80. That's it. So our last event, the one event we did in Toronto, 300 plus people applied, but about 81 got in. That's it. Everybody else, I'm sorry, 220 of you are not getting a ticket. But we have money. We don't care. We don't think you're a good match for this specific event. Try for the next event because the audience might be different. But we're trying to find people who are compatible with each other. That's the first step. Now we have a 1-to-1 ratio. In addition to having a 1-to-1 ratio, we know exactly what table you're sitting at because we know exactly who's coming, and we try to put the age ranges that make the most sense. And finally, we actually have in-depth activities that let you learn about each other in a natural way rather than just having their name on a name badge. That's just nothing. There's no information. We're not playing speed dating. We're not playing all the nonsense that non-Muslims do. We're doing things the right way, and that's why we have different results. That's the difference. Now, what did we do in that last event? 220 people paying $100 each, we said no to. Now, if it's about money, I'll find a way to accept all 220 extra people at $100 each. That's $22,000 I can get if I just lower my standards just a little bit, but I don't. So I take $22,000 and I throw it into a fireplace. If you have enough strength to do that, you can do my events. But most people don't. Most people, that is so enticing to figure a way, somehow stay up at night. Must be a way I can accept that $22,000 from these people because all these people want to pay. And what happens, even if you do find a way and you do accept their money, guess what happens next time? They don't come because they know once they get in there and it's a complete disaster, they'll never come back again. The reason why people keep coming to my events is because they work. So I'll tell you some last thing here. These events, these single speed dating events, organizations, they have a hard time getting people to drive down from the local area. Most of my events, a good portion of them, people fly down. The last event I did about a week ago, about 16 people of the 52 that came to the event, that's almost a third of them, actually took either a flight or they drew from a different state. As far as Canada, I live in the United States here, and to come down for this event. So while people won't drive to theirs. People fly to ours. We are not the same. You do things differently, people would treat you differently, and they treat the experience completely differently too. So I get different results. I try to do things differently. But all of this, by the way, is not because of me. Everything I do, including this project, is because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
SubhanAllah.
So,
and your reward is going to be with him because you're doing something for the sake of benefiting the Muslims, not just for
inshallah,
lining your pocket with money, inshallah.
I have to sacrifice a lot to do it. It is still like, you can still make, by the way, you guys can still make a profit by doing these type of things, but it doesn't mean you have to get greedy with it. You know what I mean? Stay within the halal boundaries, and there's plenty of things to do. But unfortunately, people just see the money. It's too hard to resist. By the way, the success, people ask me, okay, you got this much match and this much match. I can't take credit for that. Even though, alhamdulillah, it's really amazing to be part of something like that. The success is because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I just put in the effort the best way I can and leave the rest in his hands.
MashaAllah. That's awesome. So what about, though, people who come in and maybe they already have one wife and they want a second wife? I mean, is that something that y'all address? Because a lot of the other sides,
we live in the States. We live in the States, and so we have laws that we have to go by here. And the last thing we want is this project to shut down, because even though Islamically we have our own rules and laws, we have to follow theirs, because if we don't, then the whole thing gets shut down. And whenever Muslim's doing something successful, there's someone else that's going to try to shut the whole thing down. So we don't give them any ammunition for them to do that.
Oh, that's great. Oh, mashallah. I didn't even think about that. So, like, even if it was, I heard Utah actually changed their state law to where they're allowing people to get polygamous marriages, but I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I'm in California, so most of our events are in California. It's amazing how many people fly to them, by the way. I didn't realize how many people flew to them until the time came for Salah. And it's okay, whoever's traveling, come for Isha. I'm thinking to myself, who's traveling? I said, whoa, there's a lot of people traveling for Isha. Oh, where'd you come from? I came from Texas. Where'd you come from? I came from DC. Where'd you come from? New York? What? Chicago? Seattle? I came from Canada. Me too. The farthest we've had anyone fly from was, I did in the Toronto event, in July's event. A sister told me I flew in from Pakistan when I got accepted. And we did an event in Chicago. A guy came in from the UK. We did another event. A guy came in from India. I mean, they'll fly in. It's so hard to get your foot in the door, because only around 28 to 32% chance that you actually get accepted at our event. So if you're watching this video right now, I'm going to go to the next event. Maybe you have a very small chance. There's a 72% chance you won't get in. It's an extremely selective process, but if you get your foot in the door, you may be successful, like many of the people who have been successful, where it's a filtering process, inshallah. So it doesn't hurt to apply. I would at least apply and see what happens, inshallah.
Yeah, and where would they apply at?
So there's two events coming up. One is coming up in London for those who are in the UK. You go to britishmm.com. So it's britishmm.com, and that already 200 people have applied, and the event's not even until November. But we've opened up the second event while I'm there. I'm personally flying down to host this, by the way. So November 12th and November 13th. So they're going to accept 40 men and 40 women per day. That's it. And the second event will be in Southern California. You go to HOD offline. So halfardeenoffline.com, HOD offline, and then you can apply for that one. So I'm trying to do something different. I'm trying to give the model away to different Muslim organizations so they can. I want to replace this speed dating process. I'm not just here to beat the competition type of thing. No, I want to change the way we do things Islamically. Let's remove speed dating, use this model instead, because it's successful. It's going to be hard for a lot of people to do that but my argument is, if we do this successfully, even the speed dating people who do this as a business, purely business, you will make more money. And well, I don't see more money. You're losing money. Well, if your events are successful, people fly to them and they drive to them, and you don't have to do as much marketing. People want to come. You don't have to squeeze them to come, and you'll get the ideal audience you want. Right now, the sister who's 40 and she's talking to a 21-year-old brother is unlikely to match. Neither side are looking for each other. So yeah, you can trick them enough times. Eventually, somebody down the street is going to use the model that I have, and they're never coming back to your garbage model again. I would never go. I call it theme park food, by the way. You've been to a theme park? Yeah. There's nothing else to eat except for the pizza that tastes like cardboard that costs $10 for a slice. Yeah. We would never, ever eat pizza from here, cheese pizza. But I have absolutely no choice. My kids are playing, and there's nothing halal here to eat. So I'm eating cheese pizza for $10. If a person down the street opened up next door, opened up a decent place for better food, why would I ever buy this food again? They have a monopoly. And right now, speed dating has a monopoly. Once they see a different model and actually works with these type of numbers, they're not going back.
They're not going to go back. SubhanAllah.
So it's just like me. I'm not going to just, once I discovered Islam, I'm not going back. So once you find the beauty, I'm not going back. What are you going to do to convince me? I was sold this bag of goods of garbage before, and that was the non-Muslim life, and I accepted Islam, and I finally had peace in my life. There's nothing you can do to convince me to go back to that. When you find something better, things will change, inshallah. So that's why I found something better, alhamdulillah. So
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Mashallah, that's one of the fruits, the thamara that come from, you know, I guess, you know, for people like us that, you know, at least I can relate to you a lot on that, on, you know, coming from and seeing the negative aspects of what non-Muslim life is like, and the image, you know, everyone putting up an image, you know, chasing after things that are fleeting, and then having something that's real, mashallah. It's it makes a huge difference. But when you have Muslims going backwards and chasing after these things from people who we know very well didn't give any, you know, peace and security inside from, it kind of, you know, begs the question, you know.
It begs a question, just like being in the theme park. We have great, amazing halal food at a great price, and you're going to go back buy the $10 pizza that tastes like cardboard. To us, we're just scratching our heads. What are you guys doing? That's the stuff we used to eat and get tricked over, and you guys are going that direction. Look what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Look what you have in front of you. And to us, it's just weird. Like, what are you guys thinking?
Well, may Allah guide us all. So that brings us to the last segment of the show, mashallah. Before I let you go, I want to talk about, like, alhamdulillah, you've been doing this. You've been trying to, you know, put yourself out there, teaching good messages to the kids, to people as a da'i, right? For many years, a couple of decades now. How do you stay steadfast? I mean, a lot of people, you know, they get burnt out, or they water down, or they maybe, you know, they're like, well, we can't beat them, might as well join them type of mentality, or they, you know, weaken in some areas. Like, how do you keep that same fire, that same vigor, that same, like, intensity and love in a good way for Allah and for this deen?
Yeah, so everyone has their own limits, right? So each of us knows how far you can go. And I get burned out too, by the way. And I just don't have an off switch sometimes. And when I don't have an off switch, that's not a good thing. That's one of the many flaws that I have that I need to work on. So I work so hard. And one of the things I've learned through my experience is that you have to learn to say no. Because when you want to search good things and you get good opportunities to come your side, you have to be able to say no and to focus on the things you do have. Because you're thinking you're doing more good by accepting every possible good situation, but you don't realize that you're doing it at the sacrifice of the current projects and things that you have on your table. And then you end up doing 10% of 10 different projects. You have absolutely nothing done. It is better to work on one or two things. That's the first piece of advice. The second thing of advice is find people who balance you out. If you're the outgoing, social, focus on like marketing and all things of that nature, and you're really, really good at putting yourself out there, find people who are more task oriented, people who know how to get things done, who don't need to be on the spotlight, but they feel more comfortable in a different side of it. And that's what I've learned as well. So I find different people have different personality types, and fitting out would be great to fit with each other. There's people who are like for example, programmers. A lot of programmers, they can program everything they want to program, but they may not necessarily have the creativity or the idea of what to make next. Then there's other people who have these amazing ideas, but they don't know how to program. Putting the two together is an amazing, amazing piece that puts both of these people who have two different talents and two different mindsets that balance each other out, and they can do amazing, amazing things together. And then surrounding myself, finally, another way of surrounding myself is people who are very grounded, people with their deen. People, no matter if you become very successful or you fail, or whatever is your situation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you through, they keep you balanced. They keep you balanced again. I keep using the word balance because sometimes people become very famous and they change. People become like this, they change. I don't think people change with money, by the way. I don't think people change with fame. But rather, I think all those type of things really exposes who they really were. In other words, money doesn't corrupt people. It exposes them. It shows you them. Sometimes you don't know who this person is until they're tested with money or fame or success or death. Then you see what level of iman you have. Otherwise, when everything's going well, you don't know who you are. You don't know how strong you are. You find it in that time. So by having good Muslims around you that don't care about whatever success you've had before or now, they don't care if you are rich or poor. They don't care about this or that. They care about your character. That's when you know you've been really, really gifted by amazing friends and companions. And you should never take those people for granted. Because a lot of people, most people don't have those type of friends. And these are really true gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you are struggling to find these type of people, the first thing you got to do is make yourself worthy of having such friends. So when you're making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring these people towards you, you need to be that good friend that they want to be around too. So if there's major flaws with your character, start tackling those things first. That takes a little self-awareness and a level of humbleness to realize that, hey, I may be something that's like, here's some of my flaws. Here's some of the things I need to work on. I need to work on this. I need to work on this, and focus on those things and be more self-aware of those things. So when you catch yourself doing it or behaving in such a manner, you hold yourself back. And when you start working on these things, you'll be surprised how sometimes certain doors open, people into your life that were never there before. And then other people who don't like this new you, they start like becoming too busy to hang out with you. Does that make sense? So these people, or the bad people, kind of go away on their own, and the good people come towards you. But if bad people continuously want to hang out with you, that means you must have some bad attributes about you that you don't see. You may not understand how people perceive you, but they still see it in you that they want to be around you. Otherwise, why does a bad person want to hang out with you so much?
That's a good question, and that takes I think a lot of like self-searching, and a person's gonna have to sit down and figure out who they are, and I guess decide what they're gonna want from their life first, and that's a lot of reflection. And that's I mean that I feel like a lot of people, maybe myself sometimes included, the way that the world is progressing and with how connected we are to all these devices, I think it's hard to get carried. It's easy to get carried away and forget about taking account. Like Omar radiallahu anhu said every day, to take hisab before the real hisab comes, right?
Yeah.
And that personal introspection, it's hard sometimes, isn't it?
It is. I mean, look, I have friends who don't care if I have 10,000 people following me on Instagram, 1 million people following me on Instagram. But some people, this is how they value. How many likes did you get? How much are you liked in today's society? They call it social media currency. This literally made out of thin air, just like it's like a video game, like a simulation. And we start valuing ourselves based on how many people liked our last video. We go and check our views. What do we get? Is this good or not? But really, what value does it have? Who's going to remember any of these numbers of your last video or your last picture that you post on Instagram or your TikTok? Who's going to remember any of these numbers except for you? The only one that really cares is just you. Nobody else cares. Everyone's doing this. They're just doing this the whole time. As much as, wow, this is a great video, I spent all this time putting it all together, they spent 3 seconds doing this. You're one of thousands of videos that they're scrolling through. As much as sometimes we put so much importance in these things and we think they're so important, people watching and people care so much, they don't. We're over flooded with information, over flooded with people, over flooded with entertainment, that everyone just becomes nothing. By the way, the marriage thing is very similar. When our parents and their parents and those parents, many of the people through doing things to the Islamic way, when they were looking to get married, they had maybe 3 or 4 proposals. They didn't have thousands of proposals. So those few proposals meant a lot. Today, you have thousands of people, millions of Muslims on these apps to go through. So they're all worth almost nothing. Because if I just swipe, it doesn't matter. There's someone prettier going to come. Eventually, I'll find someone better. So we took gold, and now we have paper. Millions of pieces of paper. They're not worth anything. You can't go around and sell paper. You can't sell 3 pieces of paper to anybody. We used to have gold nuggets. Same thing with friends. Back in the days, people had 2 or 3 or 4 good friends, good companions. Now you've given the illusion that you have 5,000 friends on Facebook. You don't have 5,000 friends on Facebook. You get in a car accident, tell me how many of those friends are going to come watch you and help you and take care of you and see you and visit you in the hospital. Those are your only friends. Everyone else, you know what they're going to do? They're going to click on the like button. I got in a car accident, I almost died. They like it. big thumbs up. This is the illusional world that we're living in. You look around, we have so many people, but we're also the most loneliest generation. We don't even know how to talk to each other. If you don't believe me, put a bunch of youth in a room together, and this is what they do. They'll text each other. They don't know how to even communicate with one another. I see this with people looking to get married. They don't know how to talk to the opposite gender about marriage. This is the same generation who grew up like this. And we pretend that we're just going to take their phones away and they're going to start being able to talk like human beings. They don't even build, you guys call Generation G, Generation Z, Generation this. I call it Generation Socially Awkward. They don't even know communication. They don't know anything. Even doing Dawah is awkward. They don't know how to do Dawah. Everyone does, all they know how to do is like things and friend people and give a thumbs up and smash the like button and subscribe button. That's all we know how to do. But there's no real human interaction. That's what we're missing, unfortunately.
SubhanAllah. I don't know what else to say. I mean, may Allah help us. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about myself and, wondering, man, am I falling into this too as well? And
we all are. We all are. I'm falling to sometimes and say, okay, how well did I do today? And I'm judging myself based on how many people watched the video or liked something. By the way, I'm not telling you guys are making mistakes, and me, I'm free from it. No, I'm in the same boat. I'm looking at my reflection before I see you guys. So what I'm saying is that we all are falling to this trap telling us that this is success. If I got 55 views or 5,000 views on my video today, was I successful? You don't know what success is. Success is on the day of judgment, you were given barakah for that. You were given currency paid off for what you just did. That's success. Failure is when all the efforts, all the editing, all the time, everything you've done was for nothing. That's Islamic's definition of bankrupt. When you did all this effort and it was for nothing. Yeah. So may Allah protect us from being among the people who will be bankrupt on the day of judgment. May He keep our intentions straight. May He keep us among people who bring us towards closer to Him. And we may not even understand that certain projects that we're doing, even for His sake, our intention is pure, it may be taking us down the wrong path. And maybe other projects where we don't think it's that much value could be something very, very huge. Because anything we learn from our deen, sometimes from the human experience, we think of saying, subhanAllah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, it's just very light on the lips. What's the big deal? While these words will be very heavy on the scale on the day of judgment. So things for human perception could be humongous difference when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He rewards you for. While somebody else may do a huge donation and say, oh, I donated all this money, but your intention wasn't right and you did it for nothing. so it's like you may get nothing for it. But it took me years to save this much money and you wasted it like that.
That's scary.
It's scary. So that's why it's like really putting yourself, and this comes to the last piece of advice, having those companions around you, the righteous ones, the good ones, who will hold you grounded is so important. Because
including a spouse, not just your friends, but I guess the spouse is the most important.
That is the number one companion. That's why one of the things that's so endeared to my heart, I've done these kids programs, I've done games, I've done comedy, I've done all these things around the world. I would trade all those in to do the marriage project because that I feel is the most important. That's why my heart's there. I'll be honest with you. I don't care about stand-up comedy. I've done about 400 shows around the world. They pay me really well to do it. I have zero ambition to do it. My passion, as you can tell from the way I'm speaking, I can't hide this, is about marriage. I really want to help people get married. I really do care about the friends issue. I struggled with it. I know what it feels like. I struggled through marriage. I struggled finding good friends when I first became Muslim. When you find people who are struggling through it, they know what you went through. And that's why it makes it easier for me to come up with these programs and these ideas. You asked me earlier, where do you come up with this stuff? Well, your passion, all you do is think about what can I do to fix this problem. It's so much easier to come up with it rather than just think about, let me think about the next $1 million idea. What makes me money? Because if I just had an idea what makes me money, I would sit there with a blank piece of paper. Instead, I come up with things that I think are going to be solutions to help the Muslim Ummah. And if they become profitable, they become profitable. If they don't, they don't. I don't make any money off of YouTube. I don't care. All this thing came from outside of YouTube because of YouTube, and the money came out where. So what you're going to learn is this. Sometimes, even if you're you do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you think, okay, there's no money that can come out of it. That doesn't lower your rizq. Your money comes somehow, some way, in different ways you don't even imagine. And anything you sacrifice for the sake of Allah, Allah will replace with something better. Anytime. That's happened to me. I had opportunities to deceive people and I didn't. and I gave up the entire project. And my programmer, which happened to be a non-Muslim programmer, he said, if you don't do this, you're going to lose all your money. And he was right. I had zero regrets. But I told him, I won't deceive people for money. And then Allah replaced that same project with another project that became profitable almost immediately. Abnormally profitable. Till today, it's still been profitable. So my point is, you sacrifice something for the sake of Allah, Allah replaces something better. Did it come immediately? No. It took years for that same project to come back in a different version of itself. It's a test. And all of us will be tested with different things. You know, Allah knows you and He knows me. Certain things you will be tested with, I will never be tested with. Because you may be able to endure it, but I won't. And things that I will be tested with, you won't be. So this is the reason why some of you will make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for certain things that other people have, and Allah will never give it to you. And you're like, why? Does Allah love them more than me? No. Allah is doing this at His mercy because He knows you can't pass that test. Some of you pray for, oh, Allah, give me all this wealth. I'll build orphanages. I'll build this masjids. I'll build all these different things. Only Allah knows if you actually go through with it. You don't know what's inside your heart. He does. So when you make dua for certain things, a certain level of success, why don't my success of my projects become like other people? I've tried everything. I've tried literally emulating everything they're doing, and I can't do it, is because it wasn't meant for you. He's protecting you from something that could really take you away from the wrong direction. Sometimes when He limits us, He's doing it out of our mercy, of His mercy to protect us, but we don't see it. All we see is the ceiling that He's put around us to protect us. So that's the way I see it. Sometimes I tried certain things, it just wasn't work. Like for me, for example, my Half Our Deen, the Half Deen project, it's never going to be reaching like the 4 million, 5 million, 10 million people like they have on other websites. But I know the only way I can do that is to reach a larger Muslim audience. And the only way to reach a larger Muslim audience is to do some of the haram things that I feel that I'm not going to promote, dating and things of that nature, right? I'm going to try to reach more marriage-minded Muslims. If I do this, I have a very small fraction of Muslims that are going to be doing that. So my project or business will only be limited. I have to be able to accept that. So what prevents you from being tempted to go that direction? That's your iman. So it's a constant struggle, by the way, especially when I see other people with cheating. You know, they put fake profiles up and they get caught for it. They do copy non-Muslims and they get caught for it. They get sued for it. And it's tempting, but I hold myself back. I have to remind myself what is really happiness, what is peace. And being a non-Muslim before, and I chased money and chased those things, it never brought me peace. The only thing that brought me peace was Islam. That's why I will never go back to that lifestyle or that world again.
Allahu Akbar.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Allah mentions that in Surah Hujurat in the Quran about the believers of those who they hate to return back to kufr, right? To return back to that darkness that they came from. So may Allah ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. May Allah never let our hearts deviate, like go back to that darkness after He has guided us. And verily Allah is the best of those who give gifts, because Iman is a gift. Like alhamdulillah, all this is a gift. Do you have any last words? I mean, I don't want to talk too much more.
No,
I've
already talked way too much.
No, it's great. Please give us some last advice. I'm speechless. This is. I mean, I feel like I wanted you on the show to help address a lot of Muslims who are maybe going through this, and I'm sitting here like, man, I needed to hear this. Man, this is good.
Well, there is no such thing as coincidence in this dunya. That's one thing I'd say in my last words here. Anything that comes into your life is not by accident. Sometimes you may even come with, as you said, your intention is to put me on a show for something else, and sometimes you hear something that you need to hear. Right? I'm the same way. I may go reach my friend out. I may want to ask him about some type of business type of thing. The business doesn't even go through. Instead, I meet somebody who helps me advice-wise, that helps me get into the direction I need to, advice, nasiyah that I need to hear, because there is no coincidence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows exactly the pen has been lifted and the ink is dry. Whatever was going to miss you was never going to hit you, and whatever was going to hit you was never going to miss you. For whatever reason, today in this long video, you guys who are watching this were meant to watch this. Only Allah knows why. And hopefully you will get to see some wisdom and benefit from it somehow. I hope so, inshallah. at the very least, this is also everything I say is a reminder for myself. May Allah protect us all, inshallah, and change us for the good, inshallah. Because Allah will not change the condition of the people until we change within ourselves. We need to really, including myself first before anybody else, I have to constantly try to work on my flaws, make me a better human being, a better person, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us towards, as I said many times, towards companions and projects that bring us closer to Him, and take us away from companions and projects that take us away from Him. And Jazakallah khair for having me part of your show.
I mean, Wayak, these are amazing dua, and I ask Allah that if I don't get to meet you in this life, then inshallah we'll have a party at my place in Jannah, inshallah.
Ameen, sounds good.
So I'm going to go ahead, guys, and wrap this up. I know there were a few questions, but it wasn't that much, and he's been on for a while, so I'm going to let him go. Inshallah, if y'all have anything, ask later, and maybe I can send it to him, and we'll try to post it on other social media. But Jazakallah khair, may Allah bless you, take care of you and your projects, and allow it to benefit this ummah, because the Prophet said that if Allah loves somebody, then He will benefit the people with him. So Allah make us of those who are benefiting the people, and those who stay steadfast on this religion, upon the proper aqidah, and give us the wisdom to understand what it means to be good educators for our kids and for our community at large. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.